Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Creatives. I'm your host, Rebecca Bertoldi, your friend in marketing. And you'll probably notice that I'm here by myself right now. So if you guys have a moment, last week, our dear friend Tara, her father passed. And Tara's taken a little time for herself, which of course she should. But if you have a moment, reach out to her, send her a little love. She's needing it this week. And so I know we're supposed to have a guest on today. I believe she's running a little bit behind, and that's okay. We all know life happens to us, right? So I wanted to actually tell you guys about something that's coming up. And essentially, I've created a website for our Coffee with Creative show, and we are loading all of the episodes in for you guys. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I also want to know, I wanted to let you guys know that we're going to start doing monthly contests. So it's one of those things where you get to win things all around the area, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I'm going to bring Heidi on now. Good morning, beautiful. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing
Sorry,
great.
I was using a different link, and I was hanging out messaging you, and then I'm like, here we are. How are you?
Oh, well, good morning. And so I was just doing an intro. I just let everybody know that Tara's father passed, so that's why she's not here today.
Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so we're going to send her lots of love and lots of support. And I was just also announcing that we're going to have contests starting. So starting May 1st, you guys will have the first opportunity to get in there. And what we've done is there is a nonprofit called the Madonna Place, and they are having this awesome concert coming up, and it's one of their fundraisers, and we got you guys tickets so that you can win through the contest. That's awesome. If you want to go there, and they are featuring the band Sugar.
Oh, fun band.
Yeah, I know, right? So lots of fun, and you'll be able to win. And so that contest will come to you next week.
Yeah, and those tickets, let me tell you, Sugar always sells out. So they perform at a lot of local venues, wine vineyards and events like that, and it's packed always. So
always
super
awesome. Well, I would love to show everyone our coffee cups. Heidi, would you like to start?
Yeah, I've got my coffee here. Joy. Yeah, it's so funny. This is a holiday mug, but I keep it year round because it's like we need joy year round, right? So
absolutely.
So we're talking about creativity and the blocks that come up for people. It's pretty normal. And here's the thing that I just want to say today, I'm probably going to say a lot of things aloud that a lot of people aren't willing to say. I don't believe that the creative blocks that, people experience are really because they're uninspired or because they don't have anything to say. It's really because they are giving away like their personal power. They're waiting for permission to create the spaces that they know their ideal clients need, or they're waiting for the green light to say the things that they believe are important and that resonate and will, move people forward. But they can't trust themselves yet to go and say those things. And so that's the conversation we're having today. It's not really a pep talk, for you to just, start believing in yourself so you can get back out there and do the things you want to do. It's really having that deep level conversation, that heart to heart with you about, why it's so hard, right? It feels hard. It really isn't hard, but why it feels hard to just trust yourself enough to do the thing that you believe is so important. So,
and I think that's a good point, because we often minimize our feelings to be more acceptable or to be in part of the norm. So I feel like that's something that we've all learned growing up.
yeah, we've learned it, somewhere along the way, or we've lost or have become disconnected from that trust that we had with ourselves, because when we trust ourselves enough, we are able to do 3 things that are critically important to the creative process. And those 3 things are, we're able to act with speed. We're able to execute that original idea, and we're able to maintain the emotional bandwidth that we need to keep taking action. So those are the 3 things, the 3 elements really that I want to talk about today that are a result of that self-trust. When you trust yourself, then you can do those 3 things or embody those 3 practices. And it's going to keep you in motion. So, and there's all these reasons why, right? Because we build confidence by being in motion every time we take action. It's that feedback loop, that we are competent, we are capable. And again, we just keep strengthening that self-trust. So speed, originality, and emotional bandwidth, those are the 3 elements. At a minimum, I want everybody to have those 3 checkpoints in their mind. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just want to add, when I had my first marriage wasn't spectacular. And then after that, I lost my trust to make decisions because I'm like, how did I get here? And I was like, how did I not recognize this stuff ahead of time? So I think, and those decisions that affected me in my business and everywhere. It wasn't just picking my next partner. It was affecting me everywhere. So I feel like this has to be a common problem, wouldn't you say?
It's a very common problem. And, if you and I were, in our private space together, one of the questions that I would ask you, right, that I would ask my clients is it that you really didn't know, or was it that you weren't willing to listen? Right? And again, that's the evidence of the self-trust. Could you have trusted yourself to listen to? Sometimes it's just that really quiet whisper, that's saying, this is maybe a yellow flag. Maybe it's not a red flag, but just pay attention. Just move a little bit slower and lean in and just be curious about why this feels like a yellow flag. So that's what I mean by self-trust. And yeah, we can all think back to a moment where we did or didn't act because of self-trust. You know what I mean? We either acted and continued forward, without, pausing and trusting, or, we didn't act, we forfeited on the opportunity because we couldn't trust ourselves enough to move forward. So yeah. So just imagine, right, in that instance, Rebecca, being able to trust yourself enough to ask one more question in an instance where a yellow flag came up, right? Just to ask a question, something so simple, rather than sitting and overthinking, overanalyzing. Is that what my ex meant by this? Is that, am I jumping to conclusions here? Am I being too dramatic? Am I being too sensitive? And, am I being too needy? Right. And I'm just talking hypothetically, but just being able to trust yourself and take that one little action there. Right. Because when we have that emotional bandwidth to just sort of pause and make space for ourselves, again, the feedback loop is what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what our intuition is saying to us is important. It's valid. So we have to make space for that. But we only make space for it when we trust ourselves. When we believe that what we think, say, feel is important.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe there were times in the past when I would have my intuition is speaking, and then someone's like, that's not it. And then you just shove it down again, and it's easy to do. Yeah.
Right. And so, so number one, right, the speed piece around, when we don't trust ourselves, we often second guess, we overthink, we overanalyze. We go to social media and compare ourselves to someone else who is saying maybe something similar, but has got a bigger following. And we think, oh, the way they said it, that's really the way I'm supposed to say this. But now we're aligning ourselves with someone else who may have different values, who has a different voice, right? Which leads me to the originality, because you see this in marketing, right? That, we're all working to help people to move forward, usually around one of three things, right? Their personal health, some type of wealth problem, right? Finances, business building, something. Or the third one is relationships, right? They're, feeling disconnection, or they're looking for that important relationship, or they're looking for their new circle of people, whatever it is, right? So my point in bringing this up is we're all talking about very similar things, but they sound different because our slant, our posture, our position, our voice, those are the things that are so individual. So, what you have to say, it is going to sound different than the other brand name that is similar to you. It's going to sound different, and both are absolutely valid.
Right.
Right. But if you don't trust yourself and what it is you have to say, then what you do is you go and compare yourself to that other person. You think, oh, they're doing it better.
Right.
I need to wait and go rework this idea, further develop it, refine it 17 times, and then come forward with it. Right? And then the emotional bandwidth piece is woven in here, because sometimes you do say things out loud and you have someone who disagrees with you, or you have someone who, maybe has a completely different point of view, or just has something negative to say, whatever. And that feels like it's invalidating, or that feels or reinforces this story you have in your head that you're just still not enough, right? You should have known that this was something else to consider. You should have, woven in that objection into what it was you were going to say, right? Instead of just realizing, like, it's okay. People can have different opinions. It doesn't invalidate what you're saying, and still keep speaking up, right? Because that's one person. How many people, actually found value in what you were saying? How much?
Yeah.
How much? I was
going to say, like, because we don't look back at that. We often look at the negative first, and we're like, oh my God, look at all the things we did wrong, versus being like, you know what? We just put this out and it's pretty amazing, and a lot of people love it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. We get so caught up in, the one thing, and we think the one comment here, or the, little bit of friction that we experience along the way is going to be the deal breaker, right? It's really going to be the thing that, defines us and, keeps us stuck or puts us in our place. And it's not put your power in, your position. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So speed, originality, and emotional bandwidth. The emotional bandwidth, and I think you on your live stream here too, if people have questions or they want to, type in a comment here, I love that. So I just want to remind anybody who's tuned in live,
definitely,
to add their voice in here. There's definitely space for you and your thoughts. But the emotional bandwidth piece is what I find is missing from most of these conversations. There's a lot of people talking about, how to navigate creative blocks, or to how to get yourself unstuck and moving forward. And it is about taking action. It is about implementing, different strategies, and they all work. They just, we don't need them all. We just need to find the ones that work specific to us, right? But then there's this emotional piece that's really important, because you're not a robot, right? Just like me. And if we were, we could just follow a simple, action plan, step 1, step 2, step 3. We'd execute it beautifully. We'd have that end result and we'd keep going, right? So, in my experience as a licensed psychotherapist, it's not that people don't know what to do. It's that there's some type of emotional block that comes up in reaction to the next challenge or the unforeseen obstacle that, kind of gets in the way, or, it's not because they don't know. It's not because they're not committed. It's not because they're not, willing or invested. It's that, a challenge, comes up, like, the link this morning, I clicked the wrong link. Like, okay, do I just, put my head down and think, great, this is another situation where I clearly didn't, I'm not super tech, right? So I didn't know how to connect to the right way immediately. And so I just don't show up. Like, no, you have to, have that emotional bandwidth to be able to be tenacious and to, sort of navigate through and believe ultimately we're going to find the solution, and it's not a big deal. Like,
absolutely,
run late or they can click the wrong link and it's not the end of the world. Let's just keep moving forward. Right.
Yeah.
So when we let these small problems become really big problems and then take over, then we're no longer in the driver's seat. And that can really impact that, creative spirit, that energy, that propels us forward.
Absolutely. And I believe, like, once we take those action steps, even if they're small steps, the universe is going to be with us and they are going to push us towards what we want. So when we start taking those little steps, a lot of times I realize, like, it's like snowballing very quickly, like in a good way. That I took these steps and now it's on fire, So I know the power of that. And I have to say, like, I think I was closer to a robot as I was growing up, because I just grew up in a household that didn't have a lot of emotion. So we were just logic. So for me, I've been able to, it doesn't matter if I have a nervousness in my belly when I'm going to launch something, I am okay to just go forward, which is now I'm realizing is a wonderful thing as I start, I really worked on my emotional side over the years and becoming more whole as a human and not so robotic. Like, all of my old assessments were like, nope, robot logic and strategy. That's it. So it's now becoming, I feel more like a whole person. I have more empathy for people. But I still have that where I just take those steps regardless of if I feel scared or not. So I think that's, it's a good thing overall.
Well, and that also is, it's like that, I call it nerve sighted. Me and my kids, we started calling it when they started performing on stage years ago. It was like they were nerve sighted to get on stage. That has to be how you feel, how everybody feels when they're about to do something that is a little intimidating or that is scary or new, or, they're approaching a big breakthrough or change. That emotional state where you're nervous and excited at the same time it's just what most people feel when they're right there. What was I going to say? So when you were talking about the logic, I'm sure there are many people listening that can connect with exactly what you said about being more on the logic end of the spectrum. And the goal here is not for you or anyone else to lose that. You need both.
Right.
Because sometimes when we get too emotional, so we have logic and emotion on either end of the spectrum here of what we're talking about. And when we get too emotional, too caught up in our heads, we need that logical side, to speak up, that voice to be a little bit louder to say, here, wait, I need you to look at this data or, this evidence here to really challenge this emotionally driven statement, this thought spiral that you're in, to bring you back more towards the middle of the road here. Right. Yeah. And in the same way, when we're too logical, like, well, the data says all these things, but I just feel like this is the way to move forward. I don't care what the logic says. Okay, well, let's lean into those feelings and validate those too, because it's important. There's some reason why, again, there's this friction coming up. So let's explore these feelings. Where are they coming from?
Yeah.
And why, so on and so forth. Where I'm going down that path. So, but the other piece around emotional bandwidth is, I want you to think about our emotional bandwidth like emotional currency, right? So we have a bank of, emotion, 100 like emotional decibels of or 100 emotional, I don't know, whatever, dollars, in your bank every day. And at the end of the day, if you run out, like that's it, and when you're on empty, that's when you're done. You've got nothing left. So somebody running on burnout, right? That's typically not from a lack of physical energy. It's usually emotional energy, right? And so the goal is really, we want to end our day with about 20 emotional dollars left over, right? Because we want to build a little bit of a reserve for when life happens to us, So then when we think about emotional bandwidth as a currency, we have to think about how we're using that emotional currency throughout our day. And are we giving too much to, incidents or interactions, problems that come up that don't necessitate that much of our emotional currency? And when we do that by practice over and over again, that is how we end up in a place of emotional exhaustion, where we're feeling, completely spent at the end of the day, or we walk into our homes at the end of the day having nothing left to give to the people we love the most.
Right.
Because we've expended all of this valuable emotion on insignificant things. And so to really feel a sense of agency, to use emotional boundaries so that, you can preserve your spirit and your energy, because that's ultimately, what attracts people to you. So I know in your space as a marketing professional, right, there are a lot of business owners and things in your community, right? And so, you're out there marketing your business, your product, your service, and what people are really paying attention to ultimately when they make that buying decision is, who are you, and do they like who you are? Do they like your energy?
Exactly.
So there was a post that I forget who put this. I think it was Ashley, who is a coach. She does a lot of like copywriting and things for business owners. She put a post out asking people to elect, how they make their buying decisions when they're hiring a vendor or something. And she gave 4 options, like their expertise, their following and engagement online, their energy in, their posts and their lives. And I don't remember what the 4th thing was, but it was like 80% of the people, 80% or more, said it was the energy.
I bet.
Yeah. And then, so I used that. I went live in my community and was talking to, I work with a lot of perfectionists, people pleasers, high caliber professionals who often also, are still healing old wounds and difficult pasts. And they really pride themselves on the doing, the productivity, the performance value is what I call it sometimes, right? And they were angry during this conversation. They're like, why? Like, they've got these, exquisite resumes with all this experience and, all these like accolades and things. And they're like, this means something. I'm like, yes, it does. It does. But first, you've got to cultivate that connection with people. If you don't cultivate the connection, they never take the time to look at your resume.
Right.
Right? Because you sound just like everybody else, and what they're looking for is connection. So, yeah.
And I 100% agree with that. I think the boundaries, the biggest boundaries I've had to set, and I don't feel guilty about it, is with my family. And I think that a lot of people feel like they need to give their family more just because they're family, but my family drains the crap out of me. So I can't give them as much as I would give other people that are in higher energy. And then one of the things I realized about myself in the last couple of months was, speaking of who you show up as and what kind of energy you have, I realized that when I go to evening events, I'm a cranky bitch. And I'm like, if somebody was working for me and showed up like that, I wouldn't want them to show up like that. I'm like, why am I showing up like that?
Yeah.
So like for me, I'm better in the mornings. I do a lot of early morning networking. When it comes around like 6-7 o'clock, I barely know my name anymore, so I don't want to be out and giving that energy away, because I do want it for that's probably my last $20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So just think about, where you can rein it in earlier in the day, and I can totally relate to that. That was part of my, sort of personal growth too, talking to people all day long. I would walk into my home feeling like I just want silence. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, please don't ask me for anything. And that's terrible, because, really deep down, I want my kids and my husband to still, ask me things, and I want to talk to them, but just feeling so emotionally sort of depleted. So we have to look at, how we're organizing our day, and, how, what we say we value, if we're actually really living according to those values, or we're just saying that we do.
Yes.
So when our feelings, in all of the assessments, the Myers-Briggs and the DISC and all of this, I tend to be more on the logical, direct sort of side of things too. So I hold a lot of appreciation there, but I also know from the work that I do that the magic is in your feelings.
Yeah.
So many times in sessions with my clients, they'll sit there and go, I don't know. Like, I can't think of it. I can't. And I'll say, well, just stop thinking. Just stop thinking for a minute and just feel. Like, what do you feel? And they're like, what? Like, what? Like, I'm speaking a totally different language in the beginning. I'm like,
yeah,
feelings are going to guide you here. And that's part of what I'm talking about when I say things like you have to claim your personal power, right? It's not knowing, it's feeling, it's embodying, it's knowing with a deep sense of conviction. Again, when you have that self-trust, that's how you can validate that and know for sure, like, yes, that is how I feel. And and move forward in that way. So,
and I do feel like, being a former robot and all, as you practice that and you start to listen, like, so for me, I've been trying to get more into meditation. I'm trying to build up how long. I mean, I'm so freaking distracted in the beginning. And then, but I'm trying to just quiet my mind for a minute. Because let me tell you, when I do that, I get this like stream of ideas, and And I'm usually doing it in the morning. And then once I hit the shower, once I'm in the water, all these ideas I have, I don't know if they're coming from straight out of the faucet, but they're all coming through me. And I have so many things I can, that I'm excited to work on when I get out of the shower, you know, but it is one of those things that it takes practice to listen to that, but it's well worth practicing.
Yeah. One of the, pillars in the framework that I'm teaching during my upcoming event, Unveiling Your Inner Icon. It's a half-day immersive workshop that's happening locally in Waterford, Connecticut, over at Langley's in the ballroom. It's going to be just an exquisite day. It is centered around really helping women in particular find the luxury in indulging in those types of daily routines and rituals to help them connect and foster that sense of self-trust. Exactly what you just described. It's, I'm not like just building a, morning routine here. It's really about tapping into, these practices that help us build self-awareness, self-trust, that self-connection. Because if we do not make space for ourselves, our day is not just going to free up an hour out of nowhere for you to say, hey, Rebecca, you've always wanted to start meditating. Like, here's an hour for you. Right. We're often just too busy. Life is not going to slow down for us. So we have to become our decisive self and decide, I have to start my day with at least 30 minutes that just goes just to me, so that I can be really clear about, who I am, how I'm showing up today, what's most important to me today, what are the ideas that I want to, call forward, what am I asking for from the universe, things like that, because otherwise you begin chasing fires, putting out fires all day long. And at the end of the day going, I don't have much to show for all the hours that I invested. Right. So I love that you start your day with meditation, and, there's no coincidence there that you get this plethora of ideas in the shower because you're in water, and there's all these reasons how we as human beings find water to be one of those elements that helps us, connect with ourselves. And so
without a doubt. So in the mornings, I like to remind myself of what my goals are.
Yeah.
Because for me, and I'm working on it. So up until now, I'm pretty distracted individual. I do have a lot of moving parts in the business. So it gets very, a lot of things happening. But there's a moment of like, in the mornings when I can say like, okay, here are my goals. Here is my vision for the business. And as I go through the day, I can decide like, oh, do I really want to spend time there? Or do I want to spend time on the things that are going to reach those goals? So it allows me to remember what I'm trying to do and stay focused on what I'm trying to do.
Correct. Right. Because, there are a million things, pings, dings, that try to, even if you're not a distracted individual, right, that try to distract you.
Oh yeah.
And you have to be really clear on your priorities. So, at a minimum, like, and it's not just any one of these elements. It's really all five together, but getting really clear on what your intention is for the day. Right. And this is because sometimes our day can, pull us off course a little bit, but to be really clear about the attitude and energy that you're showing up with, that is within your control. You don't always have control when things don't go as planned, but how are you going to show up anyway, despite, what happens? What are you grateful for? Because I do believe that acknowledging, again, things within the last 24 hours of your life that you're specifically grateful for helps ground you into becoming more mindful and more present in your day. A celebration over the past 24 hours of your life. Why? Because as you were saying early on in this live stream, we discount a lot of small wins. It's very easy to do, but all of the small wins feed into the big wins. Mm-hmm. And if we don't celebrate the small wins, we think we're only worthy and valuable when we experience the big wins. Yeah. And sometimes those are few and far between. So if you're trying to cultivate more emotional bandwidth, acknowledging that celebration each and every day is going to help, foster that as well. Affirmations.
Yes.
These are the statements that reinforce what you are capable of doing, who you are capable of being, what you are capable of having, but written as if you already embody and have and do those things. You may feel fraudulent. Mm-hmm. Using those affirmations today about your future self, that's okay. Keep using them. That's the whole point of how they're valuable. And then the fifth thing that I incorporate here is rewriting your story, right? So, any business owner who's listening to this, you've been told a million times that, you've got to overcome your limiting beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. Well, your limiting beliefs, they're the stories that you tell yourself as to why you can't have or can't do, can't be whatever, it is that you want. Mm-hmm. And the stories that you tell yourself, they sound like truths because you've been telling yourself these stories for so long. Mm-hmm. And so until you rewrite it as the story that supports where you want to be, you're going to keep defaulting back to that old limiting story. Okay. Yeah. And it's only because your subconscious brain is in control 95% of the time. It's not because you're not aware on some level about, that empowering story. You're aware of it, but if you're not revisiting and rereading it, declaring it aloud every day, that default story, that limiting story holds the power.
Yes.
So those are the 5 things that I'll just, a little bite-sized nugget there for people to start using in the morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think people really need to look at their self-talk, because I know I was so guilty of really coming down on myself for things like, I don't know, if I messed something up on a site or if it did, I'm like, and I really come down hard on myself and be like, you're an idiot. Why are you doing this? And guess what? Myself believed it. So, our subconscious doesn't know truth from.
It doesn't filter.
Yeah. It doesn't do any of
that. Yeah.
So
it's terrible.
Yeah. So we have the opportunity to train it.
Correct. It's also very powerful because once you accept that concept, you just have to be very mindful of the words that you're using, right? But again, your point about repetition, right, and practice, if you're using a new vocabulary, a new language with your subconscious, you need to teach your subconscious brain that new language. Mm-hmm. So the more that you use the empowering words, the more that as soon as you say, oh, you're so stupid, Heidi, why'd you do that? Cancel. Like, no, like, and you literally have that visual in your brain of like, nope, there's no space in here for that statement anymore. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not stupid. I'm actually brilliant. And so now, and you start talking to yourself in a different way. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to pivot. This is what I really need to do. Yes. Right? And to move forward, with that self-trust, with that inner knowing, do the thing.
And for all the other robots out there, or are hyperlogical that don't, I feel like a lot of people still feel like this work is a little woo-woo. I don't feel like that anymore. But, when I did start, I needed to see the science behind it because I am that person. And I saw the science behind it. And you guys, if you Google, there's an experiment out there with people talking good and bad to an apple. So they have a whole apple, they cut the apple in half. One side gets all wonderful compliments and positive things. The other side, they yell at it, they tell it it's bad. The one that they yell at actually rots out a lot quicker, and it's the same apple. You can actually physically see how your words will impact you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you guys don't believe Heidi, go look at that video and then get over to the Icon event.
Yeah. The Icon event, Rebecca, and I hope I see you in this room too. I have to say, it's a great example of my own dance with self-trust, right? Because this is a very powerful event that I at first wasn't sure, should I go and, put this together? Is it really something that people are going to find valuable? Is it going to be well received? Blah, blah, blah. Right. And I decided, right, magic builds off of momentum. I'm going to do this. And so I had to outsmart myself by just declaring this is the date, right? Physically, like I'm starting to make the plans, make the commitments, with Langley's, with, different organizations that I'm a part of, making the announcement out loud. Once you say it out loud, it becomes real, right? And then also remembering, all of the instances where my original thoughts have landed exactly where I wanted them to with clients, and how it literally, was the sort of catalyst for their breakthrough and their transformation. And then even in times of, self-doubt or uncertainty, looking and seeing not just the numbers of people who registered for the event, but some of the power players who are showing up. And also even my personal business bookkeeper, she reached out to me over the weekend and said, Heidi, I'm not going to be able to make it. She's traveling down, she would have been from Mass. And she said, but will you do this again? Because I am genuinely, like, this is exactly what I feel like I need. And I want to be there. And so, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, thank you for that message to just reinforce, because she could have just said, no, I'm unable to make it. But I know that the event, really resonates with her because of the exchange that we had, right? Another, registration that came through, and then I get a text saying, like, thank you for, like, keeping me accountable to where I say I want to go in the future. Like, this is why I need to make the time for this event, and it's like, yes, but see, I wouldn't have gotten those feedback loops to help me deepen my self-trust if I didn't first put this idea around unveiling your inner icon, if I didn't put it out there. Right. So sometimes we are the ones in our own way.
Oh yeah.
And until we take the action, we stay in this place of contemplation. Right. So, and that's what unveiling your inner icon is really all about. It's, so it's the catalyst to help you get out of your own way so that you can, move forward and walk with power, speak with purpose, and lead with impact. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would be there in a heartbeat if I wasn't going to be in New York this weekend.
Yeah.
But I will come to that next one. And you guys out there, there's not a whole lot of events like this in our area. And it's going to impact you in a way that you're not going to expect, because it's really new to a lot of people. And then once you really get immersed, and then you're surrounded by other people that are looking to build themselves up. Think about, so one of the reasons I have so many boundaries with family is because they still speak in a way of like, oh, you can't do that without this. And they put limits on me. I don't put limits on me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be around people that put limits on me. So when you go into this room, you're going to be around all these people that don't want limits either. And the only thing that can come of that is everybody grows together.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. I will absolutely be at the next one.
Yeah.
If it wasn't like, we're bringing Kyle to his first Yankees game.
Oh,
That's
so a milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to brave a lot of A's games, guys, so he can come do the Yankee game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm a New York girl at heart, even though, listen, I feel like I manage my loyalties to Boston and my loyalty to New York really, really well. So yeah. When you're talking about finding those connections, Rebecca, that's a really common experience that, a lot of people on their personal growth path experience. So whether you're a business owner or not, right? It's just, you outgrow a version of yourself. You're looking for that next community of people that are speaking the same language as you. And, the day Unveiling Your Inner Icon was really thoughtfully created. So we close the day with a private reception so that we can just open up the space and allow for everyone in the room to build those, connections with one another, because these are women who, some people may know each other already, but there are going to be many people who don't. And they're all sort of at that same place where they're open and available to making those powerful connections with other powerful women, because they realize, they value that those connections really just empower everybody, right? So I love connecting people that need to know one another, and that's why we're ending the day in that way. So,
it's a great thing. I mean, I have found a whole different level of support by having those kind of people around me. And there are, a lot of them, when you're all learning from like the same person, you have a lot of different tools and stuff that you're sharing. And it's easier to make use of those tools with a buddy.
Yeah.
So I find that, I find people that are understanding of the process I'm going through. And then when I share my wins or I share my challenges, they're right there. And they're not like, okay, you can't do that. If there's a challenge, they're like, let's see what else is there. And they help me brainstorm. It's not like, oh, well, you tried and maybe you shouldn't do it again. Because that's what other people in my life would say. And I don't want that. I want people pushing me so far out of my comfort zone that I'm going to crush it.
Right. Because you're changing the way you're thinking about things, right? The old way, how your family thinks, is probably how you thought for a long time. You're being very intentional about changing those thoughts, the self-talk, right? And then the actions that you're taking. And so if you keep going back to your family or to the people who, reiterate those limiting stories, then you're going to keep putting the value in the limits, versus you establish this new community, these new connections with people who have been through exactly what you're talking about, whether it's a celebration, right, or a challenge. They've been there. And if they haven't experienced exactly what you're experiencing, they still, there's something similar enough where it will translate, and where they can create that camaraderie and support that you need to feel confident and to know that you still keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys get out there to Heidi's event this weekend. It's going to be powerful and life-changing for you. And I think there's only one other one that I've heard of, other than when my coach comes around, that's in Boston, and it's like a $2,500 day. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. So your price is super reasonable. Everyone should jump on this right now. If you are in if you're not feeling as abundant as you would love to be, there are options like, Afterpay and Affirm and all that. So make it happen.
Yeah.
When I went to my first event, I was struggling so bad with my PTSD that I couldn't work a full day. So this is, I mean, we're going back now a while. And when I went there, I was like, okay, I'm just going to see what I see. And that was it. Life changed that day. That was the day that I started really working on me. And let me tell you, those affirmations, people may laugh at affirmations, but they are powerful ways to change what you have in your subconscious. Within like 6 weeks, I was able to, the PTSD brain was gone and I was able to work a full day. And I just kept with those affirmations. Like it was pretty amazing what our minds can do.
Yeah, that's tremendous that you had that sort of leap forward like that. But that's not uncommon,
right?
Because once you tap into ways of changing your thinking or the other, set of skills and tools that are woven into this immersive workshop that I'm facilitating is ways to regulate your nervous system, right? Because it's so much energy, right? And that our nervous system, when it becomes activated, whether there's past trauma or not, right? Our nervous system can be activated and it can literally impede your processing. Like it shuts everything down, right? Which is why we talk about, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and that's the psychotherapist in me, right? That I leverage though when I'm working, with people in this capacity, when they're, looking for self-mastery, transformation, to really, demonstrate excellence in their zone of genius. Nervous system regulation is very, very powerful. It's life-changing. It will move you from feeling stuck and trapped to being able to take action in a really healthy and safe way.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's a
so,
big deal, guys. Your mindset is everything right now.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling, or if you're feeling extra stressed out, or if you're having trouble getting a lot of the noise out of your head, this could be a great event for you to really explore your mindset and take control over your life and become your, let your inner icon shine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for $177, like, so less than $200, less than, going out to a fancy dinner, right? That you, probably had over the weekend. Doors open at 11:30, right? We have a beautiful, delicious lunch that is plated for everyone. We have, I'll be going through the 6 pillars of the icon framework. So that you drop that good girl act that you've been performing and you really move into not just building your resume, but building a legacy of impact here. You leave with powerful tools, a 50+ page workbook that's been beautifully curated with exercises and tools. And I even pulled in some of our local leaders, left some little gifts in the workbook as well. Nice. And then we close the day with, like I said, that private reception where we can just kind of let our hair down and connect with each other and foster that sense of community and maybe even develop more collaboration and things that will come from that. So it's going to be a very full day. I marketed this as a half day experience, but I mean, really it's close to a full day. When everything is all said and done, because we'll probably be together for close to 5-6 hours, depending on how long people want to stay at that private reception. But it's going to be powerful. And I'm really excited to be a local leader offering something that's just new and innovative and yet exactly what I know everyone needs. So
absolutely.
Thank you for allowing me to talk a little bit about that during our discussion here today.
Yeah. I mean, we're all about supporting our local businesses here. So, we want to know what you guys are up to out there. We want you on the show. So we welcome everybody. Now I have to ask, other than your event, of course, what is your favorite event that's coming up in the area?
Favorite event in the area coming
Like, is there one you always look forward to each year?
So, I will say, so the first thing that kind of popped up, and I'd have to really think about what else is on my calendar. So the Southeastern Connecticut Women's Network, if people aren't familiar, this is a community that I feel very strongly about. Great for business owners, industry leaders, professionals who are looking to connect and also who value service. We do many service-oriented initiatives and events. One of them being a mini golf event. It happens at the beginning of September. I think we have the date set tentatively for September 9th this year. But the whole point in offering this event is that we raise money to fund 3 scholarships for local students, usually women, who have decided to return and to some type of educational program. So it doesn't have to be a 4-year institution necessarily, but to expand their knowledge and elevate themselves in their lives. And so, education is, it's another place where you can build your personal power, right? By gaining that knowledge and being able to apply it and advance yourself. And so that is something that's really important to me, just in terms of value, because, my practice, my clinical and coaching practice, the Legacy Suite, is all about not just creating transformation with one person, but it's really instilling the value of then using the transformation and, the values and strategies that you've learned and allowing them to connect and resonate with all of the other women in your circle, right? So your friends, your colleagues, your daughters, your sisters, so that you create this like legacy of impact, this like ripple effect of change. Because I know I can't work with every single person individually, but if I can transform them in a way where they take their transformation and impact the people in their world, like that's power. Right. And so it's the same thing with our mini golf event. We can't fund scholarships for everybody, but we can help, 3 women go and help it, fund their education so that they can then use their knowledge to go out and change the world in meaningful ways. And so that's beautiful. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Power. Yeah.
And you guys, it's a lot of fun. I've been to this event and it is a lot of fun. So hopefully we can be there this year. Last year we skipped it because we were getting married, but I was like total bride brain.
Kind of a reason that you would have to skip.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a good reason to skip. Yeah. So I can't wait for all of that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
and I'm leaving the web address up, for a little while longer for Heidi's Icon events here.
Thank you. And when you register today is the last day that your registration will include a bougie little swag bag that, is going to help you embody that main character energy for sure. So make sure you register, because we want, we can't keep offering the swag bags after today because it's, we're getting too close to the event on Friday, but so you gotta click and register.
Yes. Awesome.
All right, Rebecca. Well, thank you so much for today. I'm really excited about the conversation that we had. And for people listening that maybe have a follow-up question that couldn't post it here live, head over to my website, heyheidig.com, or you can send me an email, hello at it's Heidi Gruss. .com. So that way, we can have our own little private discussion. You can get your questions answered, or if you want my perspective, my clients like to frame their questions with, I was wondering, what would Heidi say here? Or they tell me when they're out, in the real world making decisions, they're like, and then I thought, what would Heidi say? I'm like, love that.
That's funny, because I get that with some of my coaches too. I work with a lot of coaches from the Brave Thinking Institute, so there's, I'm constantly being coached, but sometimes I hear their voice when I'm like thinking about something, and I'm like, all right, that's all right. They're here with me.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that's the power. So
yep,
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I want to remind everybody, I'm going to put my Tara hat on for a moment here, to be kind. You never know what somebody is going through. We want to make sure that we are not, being mean in this world. We want to put our love out first. And thank you all for joining us today. And we will see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Okay.